Hello everybody, my name is Craig Bennett, and today I am going to get into a Q&A video. And it's a two-part question, and this is going to be in coding. So the first part is as far as what I'm going to answer is which do I prefer, a fully remote job or being on the job premises, and pros and cons of that. That's what I figure most people would care about. Next one is going to be what do I see? Do I see a lot of remote positions out there? And this comes in from a coding versus network engineering video. So as far as that goes, let's get into the major one is which one I prefer and pros and cons. So I'm going to jump into one thing first. I am talking about fully remote. I am not talking about a company that says we are okay if you work in 2-3 days a week and then the rest of the time you can work at your home or wherever it is. I'm talking about fully remote. I think, and this is just personal, I think you're going to see a lot more companies out there do fully remote because you don't have to deal with renting a building. You don't have to deal with chairs, monitors, whatever. That is on your end. As a remote person, that's a big thing. So it might be a con for you. So listen to that one. So stuff like printers, stuff like ink, stuff like pencils, stuff like chairs, stuff like monitors, so on and so on and so on. As a remote person, that comes out your pocket. You're going to find out very quickly on how much money a company puts off just to have you around, simply in the, maybe not in the building because you're in it, but simply in the equipment to keep you around. And you're going to have to buy some really good stuff, really good chairs. Like this is like a $400 or $500 chair, and it gets into that type of stuff. If you use it a lot, you're going to need it. It's not things you can cheap out on, because everybody's going to be in the doctors half the time trying to fix your back or something. So with that in mind, you really got to keep that in your mind, that the expense on your end. It might be a con on your end, might be a neutral point, like if you're like me, but that's just a major thing you got to keep in mind. So, and that's why I think that a lot of companies are going to go more and more remote, if like sales and coding and stuff of this nature, that you don't need the person actually in office. It's, even if the office is there, it saves so much money just on the materials they will be using that it's worth not having them there. And then on top of that, if you might have to have, I don't know, accountants and stuff like that, maybe have to fully show up or something like that. But as far as that goes, downgrades from a 100-person office down to a 5-person office. That's what you gotta keep in mind, is a lot of companies trying to see, okay, instead of paying rent for a 100-person office with parking lot and everything else, make sure everything's properly lit, bathrooms already working, and so on, so on, so on. We just have to pay for a 5-person office, and it could be a rinky-dink thing, and the parking lot's there and all that stuff. It's a lot different. So that's why I think it's really going to be pushed out. Now a lot of people just have to adapt to it. Now, as far as that goes, with that being said, my conditions is a lot different from many other people's. I don't have kids. I don't have a spouse. I'm not in relationships. That stuff might change in the future, but at this time, that's the case. I'm in a quiet environment, so I get okay internet and stuff like that. And in your case, it might not be that way at all. You might be in a horrible environment, being all noisy and stuff. You might have kids popping in and out and doing all that stuff. And then on top of that, you might have ways to work around some of those problems. You might have like a office and whatever, and you might have kids that's just old enough where you can set up rules, saying, don't bug me during these times, but I'll play with you outside these times and whatever. And that way you can work around that. So again, it differs from person to person. But And also on top of that, you also got people like myself that you can stick me in a room for about 3 or 4 days and I'm having a party in there because I don't like people, and I can, be around myself and be happy as long as I get like maybe an hour interaction with someone, maybe a month. I'll be, if I don't get that, then I might go stir crazy. But beyond that, I'm having a time in my life where I put you in a room alone for a long time. You're probably going to be dead in the floor because you bash your head in the wall because you can't stand it. So with that being said, there's differences there too, where if you need social interaction, you're going to find a lot more difficult time in the remote world. Where it's me, I have disabilities and stuff, and I'm more than happy being by myself. So as far as that goes, pros, that's one of them. You get to be by yourself most of the time. Now, with that being said, some companies, they try to help out their employees because remote employees tend to have a high turnaround, and this is simply because of lack of discipline. But also, I think it's like I said before, just the social interaction. They really want the social interaction, just the water cooler talk, stuff like that. Stuff like that. But the thing is some companies, what they'll do is they will, and some of it's friendly or whatever, but they'll call up a local sandwich shop and have them deliver stuff to you for lunch and stuff like that, just to surprise you and do these little events here and there. And trust me, with the savings they make for not having you in a building, they can actually easily do that. All these little surprises for you, maybe send you a lunch or a dinner without you knowing, and given that they have a good idea of what you're allergic to and whatnot. But they can basically do things like that, and that's to prevent the turnaround most of the time. But more so the social interaction, just that little social interaction, it tends to be enough to keep people on balance. But again, if you got a person like myself, you can just throw me in solitary and I'm partying because I don't like people. And as long as I got a computer and internet access and all that stuff, I'm good to go. That's all I need. So that's a big thing you got to keep in mind. And some companies don't do that type of stuff. So if you're the type of person that is more social, then you might want to keep that one in mind. As far as if a company is more of here's the work, here's the deadline, get it done. Like if you work for me, basically and this is no joke, and I've done this many times, and many people could tell you that's just how it works. I give you a project, I give you a deadline, you tell me when something goes wrong and whatever, or if you can't do something, and we'll try to work around it. But with that being said, the only time I want to hear is if something goes wrong, you don't know how to do something, you got a question about the thing, or you're done. Anything else, I don't want to hear about I don't even want to know your name type of thing. So it's one of those type of things that if you got an individual like myself running the show, then you're not going to get that gold star thing. You ain't going to get that type of appreciation that you might require to work. And you just got to know your own psychology. So other than that, some pros is and this is not more so for me because again I don't have kids and stuff, but some parents, they want to do the stay-in-home parenting thing, but they need to work because cost of everything nowadays. So what they do is they do this, and that way when their kid is sleeping, like it was real young, when the kid's sleeping and during the middle of the day, they can be working on whatever. You might see it in writers and stuff like that, but in this case of coders, you see a little bit of that. So a lot of companies, they will tell you that you need to be available during this time. So like here if it's a New York company, and I'm here in North Carolina, so it's Eastern Standard Time, no problem there. But they'll say that you just need to be available between, say, 10 and 1 o'clock, so 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and that's just for meetings and stuff. But get your 40 hours in anytime that you want. It's just in that time you need to be working, so we can call you up for online meetings. And that happens often. It happens quite a bit often, or at least you'll see every Monday or whatever we got a weekly meeting. You'll see that often more. But what you'll see is they'll try to get their kid to have a sleep schedule around the meetings, or they'll try to get a job where the meetings will happen when the kid's off at school. And basically they'll see the kid off school, even drive the kid off to school and drive them home, and interact with them and be there for them, versus where another parent might never be there, and that's just different styles and stuff. But that's something that could be a positive to some people. Some people don't want to be around the kids at all, so that could be a negative. So that's something to note too. And if you don't want to be around a kid at all, then screw you. So another thing that can be a positive is that gas and wear and tear in the car and stuff like that goes pretty much away. The wear and tear still happens, believe it or not. Like for me, I got a car outside that I got to check the battery, make sure it works, the fluid and stuff like that, because it rarely moves. And because the battery can literally go bad from it sitting there for 6 months and not even being touched. So that's a big thing to note, is you can literally have those type of problems, but it's a good problem because you're hardly using the thing, and if it's a worthwhile car, you probably won't have that type of problem. If it's in the garage and whatever, probably won't have that problem. But it's half a dozen other. Basically, you want the wear and tear in the car, so it saves money on that half, and also it saves money on gas and stuff like that. So it's an important thing to note. But with that being said, you also don't have to deal with traffic and stuff like that. So my book, it's a plus. But some people, they like driving, so that's, again, it's up to the person to say that's pro and con. For me, that's a definite pro. I don't like driving at all. If I can get a self-driving car, I'll do it simply because of that. So that's one thing. Now another is a simple fact that most jobs, like I said, there's some that you have to set up a certain time of the day to work. Most other jobs that don't have that, so there's it's a 50-50 of a job that's going to have that. They're going to be very upfront if they do, because that really depends on if the person's going to be able to work there, so if they should continue the interview process. But basically what ends happening is, if it doesn't have that, or even if it does and you can work around it, you can travel around the world, and like there's some people who's literally on sailboats where they don't have to log into company servers at all, or they might have to log into once a month. They just code all their stuff on their computer, and they can be offline, whatever, coding everything, building up, and just syncing it by the end of the week. And if the company trusts them, then great. If not, then whatever. But there's literally people who's on sailboats, no joke, living on sailboats, sailing between Florida and Caribbeans and stuff of that nature, and they're at the end of the week, they pull up into a port, they sync up their boat with some internet source, maybe there's a Wi-Fi nearby, and they go and send off their project or whatever they're working on. No joke, that actually happens quite often. There's some people who I've heard about when I was out in Florida, that they live in the Bahama area, and just know the geography and whatever. But what ends up happening is they would have one of those planes that goes underwater, and they would, at the end of each week, because they're remotes, they get internet at their house and whatever, they go off in their plane, pull up into Miami, and they go grocery shopping, come back to their house. That's what they do. There's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people who live that remote style, and they're more than happy with it, and it's a great thing. I heard of a doctor that's all he did was look at X-rays. I don't know about his prior career, but he looks at X-rays of vets and stuff like that. They'll would send him digital copies of the X-rays, and I think also human X-rays too. And what would end up happening is the doctor will be sitting out there fishing, and all of a sudden an email come up, have his laptop right there, pulled up, and take a look at it, write up or whatever, and while his reels out and whatever, and send it back, and the doctor back in the hospital will know what he's looking at, because there's a lot of things in medical, and basically the doctor will spend the one out remote will be spend all his time fishing. There's that. That's I don't know if that's a rarity or not, but I'm assuming it is, because I imagine that's more of a hands-on career. But you got things like that, and that might be a plus to some, a minus to others, or a neutral to many. So you got things like that, and it allows you to have the freedom to do a lot. Now, with that being said, there's negative aspects to it, real negative aspects to working remote. You got to be disciplined. I highly recommend, if you're in high school and watching this video and want to work remote, and you're in the United States, see if your school has a JROTC program. It's basically a military-like program, and it's not going to be a boot camp, but it will probably do enough to get you a little bit of discipline to get you up to speed to do these type of things on your own. Basically take your own responsibility and stuff like that. If you're not already the type of person that does things on their own and doesn't need someone to supervise them each step of the way. That's a major thing, because most of these remote jobs, basically you are given a task, you are expected to get it done, and if it's not done, then you're fired, because you are the machine. And that's their negative thing, is if something does break, it's probably because of you. Because like on a manufacturing line, if I'm on a manufacturing line and I'm assigned to a machine, and I know this from experience, and that machine goes down, you can't work. You have to call in a technician or whatever, unless you're assigned to fix it. But still, that machine might get replaced or whatever it may be. And the thing is, you can't work. And that stopped probably production. But you, coding, writing, whatever, you are the machine. So if you go down, then that stops the entire operation half the time. And the other half of the time, you can actually shut down the entire company, because you screw up their program so badly they can't reverse it. And sometimes it costs so much to reverse it, to reverse the problem, that they just can't afford it and they go under. So it's really, really important to note that you know what you're doing, and you have to show that you know what you're doing by having projects on hand, and be able to show them that you know what a list is versus a comment versus something else. Because there's a lot of people who say, I know how to program, and held these physical location jobs, and they have programming on their title and all the other stuff, or a coder on their title, and they basically they don't know the difference. Literally, they don't know the difference between a function and a comment. No joke. So that's a major thing. And they'll be senior level too. So that's a major thing. You got to be able to prove yourself that you know what you're talking about. So that means branding yourself, as far as like me on YouTube, or you might be doing a blog or something of that nature. That's major thing. There's also side things that can be bad. It's taxes and stuff like that. So, like, say for example, if you want to work remote, the jobs in like for me, if it's like in Ireland, or Irish company wants to hire me, at this time the taxes, it's so backwards, and the treaties are so backwards that I probably can't work for a company that's in Ireland simply because of the country. So that's a major thing to note there. That might change in the future, and you know, I could probably try it, but the fact is that that's a major thing to keep in mind is the laws and stuff like that if you're working outside your country or area. And also notes that another thing is that you are it. If you go on a physical site and if you ask a say a senior level, like say you're a junior level coder, and you ask a senior level coder like what is a comment or whatever, they'll probably get you out the door. But if you're asking on functions, like you look at a function that you got to fix or write or whatever, and you're asking, I don't understand this function, maybe this little part, and they'll probably easily help you out, you know, if they see you're trying and whatever. But you don't have that. You're it. You can't go, oh hey, this function, oh that's a wall, so I can't ask a wall, let's look on the other side. No, I don't have anyone there, so my only option is to ask online, and 90% of the time I'm not going to be able to do that through the contracts, the non-disclosure contracts. And a lot of remote positions, you are literally the only programmer, so you don't even have the ability to ask someone else that works there, email them out and hope that they respond back in time. But let's say that you aren't the only coder for that company and everybody's remote or whatever it may be. You can send out an email, but how do you know that they're going to get it back within a reasonable amount of time? Whereas you can just, this function, what is that, if you physically were there? The fact is you don't have that ability if you're remote. Now that again goes, like I said, you got to know what you're talking about, and you also got to know your research skills, because there's ways to ask things online without revealing what you're working on. And there's ways, a lot of companies, believe it or not, their database is Stack Overflow. It's just copy and paste from Stack Overflow and modify things. There's a lot of that is that. So if you know how to do that, then you'll probably be more than fine on that aspect. But as far as that goes, top of my head, that's pretty. There's probably a few other things that other people can say that's negative or positive, but as far as that goes, at the top of my head, that's pretty much about it. Keep in mind, it is a job. A job's a job, and if it's a contract position, like a freelance position, then you got other liberties that you got to deal with. Maybe you have to get another job each time that project's done, stuff of this nature. But if it's you're working for the actual company, you don't have to worry about that. You know, there's things like that. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the how often do I find remote jobs. This the reason why I'm doing this last. This is highly dependent on the actual job itself. So if it's like if you're working for medical equipment, military equipment, stuff of this nature, then you're probably going to be on site. If you're going to be working around, I don't know, websites, mobile development, stuff of this nature, you can probably easily get a remote job. It really depends on what you're working on, not so much the language, but what you're working on. And then the second thing is what do you consider as a remote job? Do you consider, oh, you go there one day a week and then the rest of the time it's remote, is an actual remote job? Or do you consider, like me, a fully remote and don't call me to come in up to 6 months or so from the last time? Then like I can literally take a job from Hong Kong if they don't even expect me to show up at all and just do everything online, then I'll be perfectly fine with that. Which one do you expect to get? If you're expecting to get the, you know, you have to show up so many days a week, then you're going to definitely find some stuff and you can definitely negotiate a lot of that. But if you're like me, it gets a lot harder very quickly. Like I said, a lot of people are going to that. A lot of companies are going to go to that due to the savings costs. The other thing is timing. So, say for example, in city industries, city coding. So, for example, if I want to make a program for a given city, something that will be an application on their phone where they can walk around the city, look at the historical stuff, and they'll say, "Oh, at this spot, blah blah blah," on their phone. Well, basically, you will tend to get more jobs like that during the winter and spring times than most of the other time. So that's a major thing to keep in mind, is depending on the industries, depending on when the jobs are out. But if you're like me, where you can work on something like that, to something like a website, to something like, I don't know, something else, then you tend to be able to find some jobs fairly easily. Now, with that being said, is you do need to focus on something, or at least be passionate about something, and work towards that. That way you always keep up your skills, and that way you can use this backup. But as far as that goes, that's pretty much about it. So if you got any questions, anything else, hopefully this answers some questions. But if you got any questions, anything else, then feel free to leave that down there in the comment section, and leave a like, subscribe, share, and see you next video. And tell me what you want to see in future videos. Hope you have a great day.